This book, in my opinion, is a great book because it teaches you to have an open mind in chess and actually understand chess from a pawn structure. As you can see in the cover, there is already the formation of this hedgehog. Hedgehog is an animal, but here it's a formation that you have over the chessboard. And the greatness of this book is the fact that while this formation is generally in the Sicilian defense, you can see it in the fourth game by Robert Fischer that plays it in a totally different way, in a sense. He plays it through what we call it the Nimzo Larsen attack. So I would like to start to show you that game and then another couple of games from this book because it will open your mind to understand that you can do things with black or white, not based on the name of the opening, but based on the pawn structure. So this is a great game by Bobby Fischer against Ulf Andersson in the Siegen exhibition in 1970. Bobby Fischer starts with b3, okay? A move that he generally doesn't play because he plays e4 and he will tell you is the best by test. But in this case, b3, very strange, right? It shows that he knew every opening, he just decided to play something different, but not that he didn't know to play other openings. Bishop b2, knight c6, c4, knight f6, e3, bishop e7, a3, castle, queen c2. And here there is another game by Fischer, a quotation obviously from the author of this book, Mr. Herman Grooten, that he said that in another game Fischer played d3, okay? So, and here we have already the hedgehog formation, but in this game he played queen c2, okay? Queen c2, rook e8, and now d3, okay? And now you have a hedgehog formation. Bishop f8, knight f3, a5. And here the author writes, it's possible to keep play within pure English territory with g6. So instead of a5, play g6, okay? But black is a few tempi down on the normal version. So bishop e2, d5. It seems this move is dubious, and here it says Andersson coerces a kind of Scheveningen position with reversed colors, which doesn't seem like the right path here. C takes d5, so again try to pay attention, like you can see, right? From the book you have the hedgehog formation, and here we have it for white instead of for black, okay? So we can really open our mind thanks to this book, because we discover that we can do it in both sides. We don't have to play it only as black. Knight bd2, f6, castle, bishop e6. And here there is a diagram, okay? In this thematic position, which normally occurs with a reverse color from the Scheveningen variation of the Sicilian, it's high time both sides came up with a plan. Common plans for white are to try and get a knight to c5, so knight d2, e4, c5, or to arrange the free push d3, d4, okay? So knight d2, e4, c5, or this push, d4. But what did white played here? Because this is the important thing. This is why we read chess books, right? And because in a chess book you find that the author has put a diagram here, which means you must stop, pause the video and say, I'm white, what would I play here? Because that will be an exercise that will improve your chess. Otherwise you are just doing the things mechanically and you will not learn much. So in this position Fischer played king h1. And to this move is given 2 exclamation points. The fourth exclamation mark is for the move's actual quality, and the second is for the original insight and plan behind it. Fischer was before his time in this regard. The idea he contributed here is nowadays commonly emulated by grandmasters. It was also possible to play d4, okay? So this was a possibility, d4. And here he gives a line, okay? But Fischer played king h1, queen d7, rook g1. This was the intention behind White's previous move. White is trying to push g2, g4 and gain space on the king side, keeping in mind a medium-term end of an attack on the opposing king. The fourth objection to this plan might be that, in executing it, White would also expose his own king. But Fischer showed his class with the insight that by posting a knight at e4, as well as pushing the g-pawn, he can avoid almost all problems to do with his own king position. Honestly, some of these world champions like Fischer, also Ov, they had this kind of idea sometimes to move the king because they had a maneuver in their mind, and the maneuver would realize after a few moves when it would be too late for the opponent to actually see and understand what was going on. Because the move seemed innocuous or a waste of time, in reality there is a meaning behind. Okay, so after rook g1 there is rook a d8, knight e4, queen f7, and now g4. So White has finished the initial stage of his plan, and here now there is another diagram, which means you must pause, but this time you're black and you need to decide what would black do, or what should black play in this position. Ulf Andersson played g6, which is not the good move. And here the author says, in light of the game continuation, I unfortunately have to award this move a question mark. White's b2 bishop was biting on the granite of e5, f6 and g7, when this was here, okay? In this pawn chain, and the key component of his plan was g5 takes f6 to reduce the chain to a slightly less solid 2 pawns while opening the g file. However, after black's last move, a future g4, g5 could easily, and soon does, turn the pawn chain into rubble. Then the b2 bishop will reign supreme on the diagonal. So that's why moving the pawn sometimes is not a good idea, not only because they cannot go back, but because they create weaknesses that cannot be solved. Okay, so, but unfortunately, I mean, Ulf Andersson honestly was a top player in the 1970s. So if Ulf Andersson makes this kind of mistake, what can we really do as club players? I don't know, because again, Ulf Andersson, he was a real strategic good player, so that's it. White continue with rook g3. Doubling rooks on the g-file is a logical part of a general plan to bring more pieces to the king side. By the way, I have seen this game a few times and still I don't remember it. But bishop g7, rook a g1, knight b6, knight c5, and bishop c8. Since black's light square bishop must now defend the b7 pawn, he will almost never get a chance to trade it for a knight. But how can white make any progress? So here in this book it's great because you see that the author not only puts a diagram, but he also put arrows to give you some study aids to remember what's going on, what is the plan in this situation. Okay? Well, now played knight h4. According to the plan, the knight jumps into f5. Okay, he wants to open the g file for the final attack. Knight d7, which is a dubious move, not so good. This move is poor, but understandable. Black wanted to chase the powerful c5 knight away and reroute his own b6 knight, that was here, b6 knight, otherwise bereft of any useful occupation. So the point here is that black asked himself, what is the most useless piece in my formation? And he said, this is not doing nothing, let's try to exchange it for a knight that is doing something. Is attacking this, keeping this block there, so I can activate that bishop. Okay? It seems that in this case, the better move was king h8. Of course, the problem is that now is not on this file, but is still on this diagonal, so he still has a problem. Okay? But it was better than knight d7. Okay. What does white play? Obviously white doesn't want to exchange that knight, and he plays knight e4, knight f8. So here we can see the reroute of that knight from here doing nothing to here trying to protect the king. But obviously probably Fischer thought about it. So here there is another diagram. It's a move that I already told you because what would happen. So in case you didn't guess it, it's this, knight f5. A pseudo sacrifice that white had clearly intended and telegraphed, but of course it still has to be calculated. And now you need to calculate bishop takes f5, because in the book there is the continuation and the reason of how white wins if you play bishop takes f5. I will not tell you because I want you to do the exercise. I want you to learn to play chess better than me, which is not difficult. In any case, black continued with bishop e6. Okay, but notice that in the book there is also g takes f5. So the author has done the homework, but I think if I do the homework for you, it's not good. You need to discover what happens. Bishop f5, g takes f5, and find out why they are not good. Okay. Notice that for g takes f5, it gives a line that is at least 5-6 moves long. For bishop takes f5, instead is like 2-3 moves, so it's clear that bishop takes f5 is not good. Now, how did the game continue here? As I said, bishop e6, after which white plays knight c5, black plays a wrong move, that is knight e7. He should have played probably bishop c8 to go back. And here white plays knight takes g7. This trade is foundational to white's above mention of clearing the long diagonal for his dark square bishop. King takes g7 and g5. And this is the moment we have been waiting for, when the b2 bishop gets transformed into a monster. Knight f5. Here there is a continuation in the book given if black would have played this, okay? And at the end of a continuation, which is just another two moves and a half, white wins a piece. So this is the reason it wasn't played. Knight f5, rook f3. It seems that was even stronger to play immediately g takes f6. So that's what the author says. So rook f3, b6, g take f6, and king h8. Obviously, if he plays this, knight e4 wins the game, okay? Knight takes e6, swapping off the second black bishop so that white's bishop pair can come into its own. Rook takes e8. Obviously, you don't want to make to let white being able to move that pawn, but unfortunately it will be what it will be. d4, the idea of bishop c4 cannot be stopped. E takes d4, bishop c4, d3, bishop takes d3, rook takes d3. Black has to give up the exchange, albeit he has chosen a different way of doing so. Queen takes d3, rook d6, queen c4, and the knight e6. Please remember that this is a monster, so if you move that queen, you are going to find yourself another queen in a couple of moves, so that's the danger probably. Right? Okay, bishop e5, a tranquil and no-nonsense choice. But it seems that they could have played rook takes f5. This was a move that white could have played. And here there is all the analysis of rook takes f5, and so it's kind of interesting to follow it, okay? Rook d8, h4. Also here white could have played again this. Notice when in a game they continue to tell you that, for example in this case, rook takes f5, it's the right move, it generally means that an engine like Stockfish continue to propose that move up to the moment it's too late for changing. But that's probably the winning move, okay? Okay, so after h4, black plays knight d6, queen g4, knight f8, h5, knight e8, and e4. Here black played rook d2. Obviously remember that if black plays g takes h5, there is a checkmate playing queen g8, queen takes g8, rook takes g8, king takes g8, and then there is f7, and it's checkmate. Why is it checkmate? Because practically the f-pawn is supported by this, and the bishop controls the dark squares. So I gave you the line to help you to visualize, to learn how to visualize, okay? So instead black played rook d2, which was followed by rook h3, king g8, h takes g6, knight takes g6, f4, king f8, he's trying to escape probably on the other side, queen g5, knight d6, and bishop takes d6. And here Anderson gave up the ghost because what happens here is that after rook takes d6, f5 is the final probably move that makes him lose more material. And this is the fourth game I wanted to show you, but there was also another game, this time by Ulf Andersson as black, so we will watch Ulf Andersson in action, that was able to win in 25 moves. So I will pause this video, I will stop this video and make another one with that game.